is one of the most painful contradictions. He loves you, but he steps back. He says you're the most important woman in his life, yet you feel his distance like a cold wind. And you can't stop asking yourself, if I am the one he truly loves, why does he push me away? Is his love real, or am I fooling myself? You try to reason with it, try to hold on, try to close the space between you, but the harder you try, the further he seems to go. And it leaves you wide awake at night, staring into the dark, wondering if love is supposed to feel this uncertain. Isn't love supposed to draw people closer, not drive them apart? So why does a man distance himself from the woman he loves most? And more importantly, what is really happening in his heart when he does? It's one of the cruelest contradictions you've ever lived through. He tells you he loves you. He tells you that you're the most important person in his life. And for a moment you believe it. You feel safe in his words, in his promises, in the closeness you've worked so hard to build. But then, just when your heart starts to relax, he changes. His warmth fades. His voice grows quieter. His presence starts to feel distant, almost unreachable. And suddenly the man who made you feel like his world now feels like he's 1,000 miles away. And that's where the confusion begins to tear you apart, because this isn't about a man who doesn't care. That would almost be easier. This is about a man who swears he loves you, yet still pulls away. And every time it happens, you can't stop asking yourself, if I'm the woman he loves, why does his love make me feel so alone? Why does closeness draw me in but push him out? The nights are the hardest. You lie there staring into the darkness, your mind racing with questions you can't answer. You replay the last time you were together, combing over every detail. Did I say something wrong? Did I expect too much? Was I too open, too vulnerable? You drive yourself in circles, searching for the exact moment when things shifted, desperate to understand why his affection turned into silence. And it's not just the absence that hurts, it's the contrast. Because you can still remember how it felt when he was present, when he was leaning in, when he made you feel like you were the only woman he saw. That memory is fresh in your chest, and it makes his withdrawal feel even sharper. Like the rug has been pulled out from under you. One moment you were everything. The next, you're left questioning if you're anything at all. The confusion cuts even deeper because you know his love is real. You've seen it in his eyes. You've heard it in his voice. You've felt it in the way he's held you. That's what makes it so unbearable, because if the love is real, then why is the distance real too? How can both exist at the same time? And the thought you never want to say out loud whispers in your mind, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the reason he pulls away. And so you start shrinking without even realizing it. You silence parts of yourself, hoping it will bring him back. You tiptoe around his moods, afraid to scare him off. You wait by the phone, holding your breath for every message, only to feel the weight of disappointment when it doesn't come. And each time you compromise a little piece of yourself, you tell yourself it's worth it, if it means keeping his love close. But deep down, the ache never leaves. Because no matter how much you try to close the gap, you can feel it. The distance between what he says and what he shows. And that distance is the part that keeps you awake, the part that haunts you, the part that makes you wonder if love is supposed to hurt this much. It's not just about losing him, it's about losing yourself in the waiting, in the questioning, in the endless cycle of closeness and withdrawal. And in the quiet moments you don't share with anyone, you admit the truth. You are tired of loving someone who says you are his world, but makes you feel like you're standing on the outside of it. So why does it happen? Why does a man who says you're the love of his life, the one he's dreamed of, suddenly start to pull away? Why does his distance grow right when you thought his love was deepest? It feels cruel, almost like betrayal, yet the answer is often more complicated than it looks. For women, Closeness is what makes love feel safe. When he calls, when he shares, when he's consistent, your heart relaxes, you breathe easier knowing you matter, knowing you're seen. But for men, that very closeness can stir up something different. It doesn't always mean they don't love you. Sometimes it means they love you so much that the weight of it scares them. You see, many men are taught, sometimes without words, that to love deeply is to risk deeply. To care too much is to expose themselves to pain, rejection, or loss. And the more he realizes how much you mean to him, the more vulnerable he feels. To you, his pulling away looks like indifference, but to him, it often feels like protection, an unconscious attempt to guard himself from being consumed by emotions he doesn't know how to handle. That's why you see such contradictions. One day he looks at you like you're his entire world, and the next day he retreats behind walls you can't see over. It's not because the love has disappeared, it's because the love has become so real that it unsettles him. He doesn't know how to stay open without feeling exposed. And here's what most women overlook. When a man distances himself from the woman he loves most, it isn't always a reflection of how little she means to him. Sometimes it's proof of how much she does. His fear isn't of you, it's of himself. It's of what those feelings awaken in him. Feelings that demand he be vulnerable in ways he was never taught to be. Still, that doesn't make it easier for you, because while he's wrestling with his own fears, you're left holding the silence, questioning your worth, wondering if you're losing him. You see his distance and assume it means your love wasn't enough. But often it's the opposite. Your love was so powerful, it shook him. It forced him to confront emotions he doesn't yet know how to process. And that's the heartbreaking paradox. You interpret his distance as proof that you are not valued, when sometimes it's because he values you more than he can bear to admit. To him, stepping back feels like regaining control. To you, it feels like rejection. And somewhere between those two experiences, the relationship begins to ache under the weight of misunderstanding. But this is where perspective begins to change. Because when you start to see that his distance isn't always about a lack of love, but about the fear love awakens in him, the story shifts. It doesn't erase the pain, but it explains the contradiction. It helps you realize that what feels like abandonment may sometimes be his clumsy way of coping with emotions that terrify him. And yet, here's the deeper truth. The one that quietly shapes everything. Love that pulls away still leaves a woman lonely. It still leaves her doubting. It still forces her to carry questions she shouldn't have to carry alone. And unless he learns to face those fears instead of running from them, his distance will always cut her deeper than his closeness ever heals. But here's the part most women never realize. When a man distances himself, even though he claims to love you, it can feel like the ground beneath you has given way. Every instinct tells you to close the gap, to fight for the closeness you're losing, to remind him of everything you share, but chasing him often leaves you emptier than before. The real power comes when you choose to handle his distance with dignity and self-respect, because that not only protects your heart, it reminds you of your worth. The first step is to resist the urge to beg for reassurance. Emotionally, this is difficult because every fiber of you craves answers. You want him to explain himself, to fill the silence, to prove that he hasn't stopped loving you. But if you push too hard in the moments he is already pulling away, you only feed his retreat. Practically, this looks like posing before you send that fifth text or make another late-night call. You remind yourself that you've already expressed your feelings, and repeating them won't force him to listen any better. Imagine this. He's been quiet for 2 days, and your heart aches to ask again, "What's wrong with us?" Instead, you take a deep breath and say nothing. By allowing the silence to sit, you send a message that you will not beg for the love that should be given freely. The second step is to redirect your focus back to your own life. His withdrawal can make you feel like your entire world is collapsing because so much of your energy has been tied to his presence. But pulling your energy back toward yourself is how you remind both him and yourself that you are more than his distance. Emotionally, this step helps you reclaim balance because it shifts the narrative from "I am powerless" to "I still have control over me." Practically, it could mean calling a friend, returning to a hobby you set aside, or investing energy into your personal goals. Picture this. Instead of refreshing your phone over and over, you sign up for that yoga class you've been putting off, or spend the afternoon with someone who makes you laugh until your cheeks hurt. Not only does it lighten the heaviness inside you, but it also shows him, if he's paying attention, that your life does not stop when he pulls back. The third step is to express your truth when the time is right, but to do it from a place of calm, strength, not desperation. Too often women swallow their feelings out of fear that voicing them will push him further away. But burying your truth only leaves you with resentment. Emotionally, this means reminding yourself that your feelings are valid. You are not asking too much by wanting consistency. Practically, it looks like waiting until you're face to face and steady in your emotions, then saying something like, "When you pull away, it makes me feel unseen. I need a relationship where closeness doesn't vanish when things get real." Imagine this. He finally comes back around, and instead of pretending everything is fine, you calmly let him know how his distance affects you. That honesty is not about controlling him, it's about standing in your own dignity and refusing to be silent. The final step, and perhaps the hardest, is being willing to walk away if his distance becomes a pattern that erodes your soul. Emotionally, this is terrifying, because part of you clings to the hope that he'll change. But protecting your heart sometimes means letting go of the one who keeps breaking it. Practically, this might look like noticing that despite your conversations, nothing shifts. He continues the cycle of pulling close and then withdrawing again. In that moment, you choose to stop waiting. You choose to say, "I love you, but I love myself too much to keep living like this." Imagine this. He pulls away for the third or fourth time, and instead of chasing, you stand firm. That choice is not about punishing him. It's about proving to yourself that your dignity will always matter more than holding on to a love that doesn't hold on to you. None of these steps are easy. They demand strength when your heart feels weak, courage when fear tempts you to cling tighter, and faith in yourself when his distance makes you question everything. But they are the path to self-respect. And self-respect is what keeps you whole, no matter what he chooses. Because at the end of the day, you cannot control his fear of closeness. You can only control how you respond. And when you choose dignity over desperation, you remind yourself that you are not a woman defined by his distance. You are a woman defined by her own worth. There comes a point when the questions that used to tear you apart begin to lose their grip. You've spent sleepless nights wondering, if he loves me, why does he pull away? If I mean so much, why does he create distance instead of closeness? Those questions echo like thunder in your chest. But then something inside you begins to shift. You realize his distance was never proof that you were unworthy. It was never a mirror of your flaws. It was a reflection of his own fears, his own struggles, his own inability to stand steady in a love as powerful as yours. And when that truth settles in your heart, the pain turns into clarity. Because you are not too much, you are not too needy, you are not unlovable. The depth of your love, the way you open your heart fully, the way you lean in when others lean out, that is your strength, not your weakness. A man who pulls away when faced with that strength does not diminish it, he only reveals what he cannot yet handle. And that has everything to do with him and nothing to do with your worth. You should feel proud of yourself for the way you've loved, proud of the way you've risked vulnerability instead of hiding behind walls, proud of the way you showed up fully, even knowing the risk of being hurt. That kind of courage is rare. Anyone can play it safe. But it takes a brave heart to step forward and say, "Here I am, all of me," without holding back. You've done that, and nothing can take away the beauty of it. And here's where hope comes rushing back in. The right man will never distance himself from you when you get close. The right man will not see your openness as a threat. He'll see it as a gift. He will not retreat from your vulnerability. He'll meet it with his own. He won't let fear dictate his actions. He'll choose you not just in words, but in presence, in effort, in the consistency that love requires. With him, you won't have to chase or question. You will know. Because real love doesn't run when things get deep, it grows stronger. So instead of looking back on his distance as proof you weren't enough, let it be proof of something else. That your love is powerful, that your presence is unforgettable, that your heart holds a depth that not every man can rise to meet. And instead of shrinking to fit someone else's fear, you will stand tall in your truth, knowing that the love you give is rare, and one day it will be met with the same energy you've poured into others. Walk forward with your head high, because you are not defined by the men who pulled away. You are defined by your resilience, by the strength it took to keep believing in love even when you were left in silence. You are defined by your dignity, by the way you chose to hold on to your self-respect when his actions made you question yourself. And you are defined by the fact that you now know your worth was never up for debate. So hold on to this truth. You are not a woman who begs for closeness. You are a woman who is worthy of a love that leans in. You are not a woman who is too much. You are a woman who will be everything to the one who is ready. And you are not a woman who is broken by distance. You are a woman who rises stronger, wiser, and even more radiant because of it. And if you ever forget, let these words remind you. His distance was never about your worth. It was about his fear. The right man won't retreat from your love. He'll rise to meet it. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for the love that is meant to stay.